The problem is when I go to the doctor and say I have a bad back, and they say, Addison, take this same pill that we also gave Brian. No. I'm out. That's not what medicine is.
Right.
And it's very basis, do no harm. Like, everybody is different. And we hear this message everywhere, culturally, society, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. I don't have the health problems that you have. So why should I have the same solutions as you do? Maybe
Bingo.
At the end of the day, maybe cannabis works great for me, but you should probably have a vaccine or a surgery or whatever, and vice versa. And so that is the biggest problem with the medical industrial complex of come in, get your prescription for whatever it is, and then leave.
Can I pause for a second and just note that we got Brian on here who's getting Congressman Massey on, and our typical lineup includes like homeless people that believe in Bigfoot.
Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show, your source for common sense politics on the We Are Libertarians Network. The Brian Nichols Show is the fastest growing liberty podcast that brings together people from all means of political thought as we seek to have meaningful conversations about the issues you care about. At the Brian Nichols Show, our goal is to leave the audience educated, enlightened, and informed. And now your host, Brian Nichols.
Well, happy Wednesday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show. Thank you for joining us on today's fun-filled episode. And I guess it's happy Tuesday to you YouTube listeners. Yes, you are catching today's episode before everyone else. So first of all, if you're just listening to the audio version, yeah, it's great, but you're missing out on a lot of visual content now. So folks, please head over to the YouTubes. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little notification button so you're not missing a single episode of The Brian Nichols Show. Now, on to the episode today. I am joined by a good friend and a pure libertarian entrepreneur out there fighting the good fight, and that is one Addison Todd from Eables, Eables, that's right, and mydelta8.com. Addison is helping change the conversation about alternative forms of medicine. I am a big believer. I'm right here in my studio with my Eables CBD, amazing full spectrum hemp extract. It's phenomenal product. Also, I'm a big fan of their Delta 8 THC, it's the Delta 8 cartridges. They're phenomenal as well, helping with relieving my back pain, especially with my herniated disc in my back. So Addison has been helping a lot of people, myself included, dealing with a lot of reoccurring chronic issues. And today you get to hear a conversation about how Addison was able to help his wife start off this entire Eables / My Delta 8 journey. And that was with dealing with her chronic migraines. And then the conversation turning into how Delta 8's helping those military veterans who are 80 some odd years old. Thank you, Addison. I'm going to say right from the onset for what you're doing. And I am so excited and proud to have you as one of our sponsors here in the program, one of our original sponsors here on the program. So folks, if you enjoy today's episode and you enjoy what we're doing here at the program and you want to support not just the program, but also support a libertarian organization that's doing a lot of great work and helping really solve the problems we see out there, please go ahead and support Eables and please support Addison doing great work. And of course, make sure you use code TBNS at checkout. Had to get that in there, Addison, of course. So with that being said, on to the show, Addison Todd.
How's it going, man? Good to be here.
It's going good. Addison, thank you so much for joining the program. I'm not going to lie. I've had so many friends of mine go, Brian, Eables, Eables. And I laugh. And I laugh. I'm saying, hey, you know what? It's funny. It works, though, because it's on top of mind. And Eables is a great product. My wife was just saying we got to go ahead and get some more Eables for the CBD, the dropper. Actually, I have it right here. How about that? Here for the video version of the show right here. The Eables full spectrum hemp. That's right. It's fantastic stuff. And
I'm really proud of this one, dude. It's
great stuff. It's a great product. And I'm so proud to have you as a sponsor of the show. And I'm proud to be having my opportunity to promote your product because it's a great product and it's helping a lot of people out there. So let's kind of start off here. I've heard the commercial because I wrote the commercial on the program.
You wrote that all up and then you're like, hey, how does this sound? I'm like, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's my version of the Eables story, but how about this? I think you being able to tell the Eables story from your own words, I think that's the best way to start things off. So Addison, with that being said, the Eables story, what is Eables? What is CBD? And why is this an area that you found yourself in helping help a lot of people's lives?
Yeah. So primarily, what I always tell people when they ask me, they're like, "What's the story?" or whatever. Excuse me. I'm really like, well, honestly, the story on the website is pretty much accurate. I mean, I guess some brands lie about that, but basically, shoot, it was like 2 years ago now, or maybe even three. My wife had chronic migraines her whole life. I mean, it was just an insane, like multiple times per week. I mean, the full have to black out the windows. Her teeth hurt. Like, I mean, just really bad migraines. And nothing really cut it. We tried different supplementation, tried changing the diet a little bit, tried some over-the-counter CBD, or CBD, gas station CBD, I like to call it. And that didn't really touch it either. And then I knew a guy from my connection. He was really kind of like a colleague from the Amazon stuff, as an Amazon seller. And he posted on Facebook one day and he's like, well, I am getting out of the CBD game because it is, that was when Shopify kicked everybody off. So at one point, Shopify, everybody snuck past, kind of loophole. And then they caught everybody and kicked them all off just out of nowhere. Just said, you have a store, no matter how much it's doing, boom, it's done. And that's what happened to him. And he was buying from a, basically just private label, buying the raw materials and labeling himself. And he posted and he said, hey, I've got all this CBD left. It's great, pain, inflammation. It's high quality. I can show you testing, but I'm trying to get rid of it. And so I'm like, well, we've tried almost everything else for my wife, for her migraines. And we can't do the THC route because Illinois next to us actually has recreational. So you can go buy if you're just over 21. And she can't do the THC because she's a teacher. And we can get into more the Liberty side of that if you'd like. But anyways, she couldn't really do it because she was a teacher. And so it's like, okay, we'll give it a shot just like with everything else. And I'll never forget, Brian, I'm telling you, I tell everybody this, and I do truly never forget it. There was a moment when we were standing at our old house in the kitchen around this little island that we had in the kitchen. And she looked up from what she was doing and she looked me right in the eye and she said, I have not had a migraine since I started taking this. And this was probably like 10 days in, And so when she said that, it just kind of like put it into the universe out loud and live. We were both like, oh, this is going to be big. I mean, that was our literal reaction because we'd tried so many different things. There's, all this headache medication. I mean, you can go to any Walmart in, coast to coast and you'll find an aisle full of medicine that's supposed to help with your pain.
Yeah.
And we, pretty much, I mean, maybe there's some new ones now, but bar none, we'd pretty much tried them all and nothing would hack it. And then she took it and it was just like, it was like a miracle. And that's when I decided, I was like, I have to get into this business because with my background with Amazon and everything like that, I mean, yes, you're changing lives. I mean, you are, you're doing, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like I sleep a lot more soundly, loving the idea that I'm giving people a new lease on life as opposed to a great price on Jordans that I got somewhere cheaper anyways. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. That's a great
speaking.
analogy. Yeah, no, a great analogy. And actually, what's funny, we were discussing this beforehand, is back last week, we're recording here on the 25th, but last week I was just on a panel where I was the moderator. It was microdose.buzz. And they had a panel, The Heroic Dose, and it was focusing on psychedelics as an alternative form of medicine for not just veterans, but also first responders who are dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and you go down the list and the different solutions that are being presented. It's amazing. It's exciting because the future of medicine, as I said in my commercial, the future of medicine is now, but there's a lot of stigma. Because
huge, man.
Because it's been one of those things that just been reoccurring. And I talked about this with Gaurav Dubey back in the program when we were talking about this when he was coming onto the program to discuss psychedelics specifically. So we've seen maybe more of an acceptance across the board with 100%. Looking at, THC, not just Delta 9, but Delta 8 THC, which, obviously sponsored the program. Eables, talking about CBD and the many benefits of CBD. So I think we're starting to see more of an acceptance of these non-traditional, if you will, drugs. And I say non-traditional by not manufactured drugs. Yeah. And people saying
when you look at the word traditional, though, it's like, well, these have been used for thousands of years. So it's kind of like they're about as traditional as you could get.
and that's, I think we're starting to see more and more people start to say, okay, maybe there's something out there that I didn't see before, or maybe the things that I was told growing up, that we all probably had to go through the DARE program.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't exactly 100%.
Did you sign the pledge, Brian? Let's be honest. Did you sign the pledge?
I think I refused to. I was one of those weird kids
Okay, good.
who
Well,
was
now
like,
you're
"This
allowed to
doesn't
use
seem
Delta
right."
8. That's how it worked.
There we go. Yeah. Well, talk to me, right? Because you're seeing more people, right, get more acceptance for this, and I'm seeing
100%.
that, right?
But let me
dig into that more. Yeah.
So my whole thing, and I mean, I'll be totally honest. I went to the dispensary this morning here in Missouri, right? I have a medical card, and I spoke to the bud tender for quite some time as I was looking at different products and things like that. And I told her, because what happens, and this is a nationwide thing, and it's big in California where, the gates have been open for some time, the floodgates, so to speak. But the other cannabinoids in the cannabis and hemp plants are where the medicine is from. It's just full stop, right? So the Delta 9, the high Delta 9 products, whether you have an edible, whether you have flower, whether you have a concentrate, whatever it is, dispensaries primarily focus on high Delta 9 products. Extremely high Delta 9 gets you really stoned. That's just all there is to it. Super psychoactive, munchies, everything that we know goes along with that. A majority of the inflammation and digestion and actual medicine, if you will, that's in the plant comes from these other cannabinoids. And and so what I've learned to do, especially even with Eables, because we just launched Full Spectrum, which has a tiny bit of THC in it, to me, it's all about the education. Because what people do is they hear THC and they're like, I don't know about that. The card, license, blah, 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 legality, stoners. I don't want to do all that. And it's like, I understand that, but there's a middle ground of this entire plant that can be beneficial in hundreds of different ways. Everything from like the CB1 and CB2 receptors, the pain receptors that most cannabinoids interact with, including Delta 8. Those are the ones that you can really get all kinds of crazy stuff once you have all of these different cannabinoids, like the CBN for sleep, the CBG for energy. And so what happens is all of these dispensaries just do high Delta 9 products. And it's like, well, those gummies were great. I ate 2 and giggled for 4 hours. It's a blast. But in terms of medicine and changing your life, and some people do need that, and I'm not knocking that necessarily, but there's an education process and a bit of a hand holding that even I've done with Eables, where I'm like, hey, this product has THC. Why is that? Because it's the entire plant extract. Why did we choose that? For X, Y, and Z, because of the benefit of that. And so you really need to, sadly, in some ways, take away the stigma of the industry itself, right? We need to communicate to everybody who wants a whole plant solution that it's not just like, Marley and the Grateful Dead. Honestly, that's because that's the perception that it has. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with that crew. There's nothing I enjoy more than getting really stoned and listening to an album. But in terms of medicine, in terms of PTSD, in terms of changing people's lives, you're going to get this from an educational experience in cannabis. And that's just all, that's how I see it, at least. Well,
and let's even take that and connect it with how I've approached the show with politics. Mm-hmm. You're going to get people to pay more attention to the actual policy. Mm-hmm. Once they're living the actual policy and then seeing the value of it for themselves. And
precisely,
I think it's actually funny. I'm thinking back to my first real experience with CBD, and I went to a health fair. It was in Philadelphia. Went down at the Wells Fargo Center. They had a health fair down in the lobby area of the Flyers Arena there. And this person was like, "Hey, this is CBD oil. And it's been helping a lot with inflammation and, helping with sleeping. And I was having a lot of pain in my back because I herniated a disc in my back. Yep. And I was like, I say it in the commercial, I was genuinely looking for anything to help with the pain because it was so bad. And I remember I tried CBD and it was about a vial about, this size or so. And it was about half full. I think it was like a 500 milligram or so vial of it. And for about a week and a half or so of using it, I realized that I had, which on average is like a 1 or 2 nights of full night's sleep. Mm-hmm. I got maybe 3 or 4 full nights of sleep.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, that's a start. And it's maybe anecdotal, but still it's data. It's my data. Yeah. So maybe I should start to look into this more. And then I started to realize that there is an alternative out there that was beyond what was the traditional opioid that you're prescribed from a doctor.
Well, and that's what I was just about to say. Like,
go for it.
If you rewind like 5-6 years, what you would have done exactly, because you said the phrase, "I'm looking for anything that will help me with my pain," which is what people do when they have chronic intense pains and things like that. And if you had gone into a clinic 6 years ago, again, maybe not last 2 years ago or whenever it was, because the sentiment we've finally started to realize, like, holy shit, we can't just prescribe opiates like candy. But that's what they would have done. Like 8 years ago, you would have gone into a clinic and they would have said, well, here's your prescription for Oxy, get the hell out of here. And we would have called that care. And in reality, you would have had to battle the toughest thing in your life that you ever have, and maybe would have wound up on the street because of it.
I don't think people realize, like, and we see this permeate through our greater healthcare conversation, is that just having healthcare isn't actually in itself caring for your actual health. It's in many cases a Band-Aid solution or a drug that we're just trying to help numb the pain and the symptoms versus actually identifying the root of the problems and trying to solve them. This is something, as a sales executive, I've tried to do in helping retake over the word sales, because the idea of sales for so long was this used car salesman trying to sell you a lemon versus the problem solver, the person who's coming in saying, hey, listen, let me hear if I had this right. I've worked with companies similar to you, and here's a problem that I have uncovered in their companies. Here's what I've done to help them, X, Y, and Z. I would love to have a conversation to see a little bit more about how your company is currently facing this problem and to see if there's areas that we could help you out as well.
Right.
That's a conversation people are willing to have versus feel that they're going to be just having forced to be buying something. So going back to the solution,
it's
right?
Education, man. It's education.
There you go.
Is the solution. Because, and I just even thinking back, because I've been doing this. So the Eables is about a year old, and I'm just thinking back in my head, just over the DMs and emails and whatever else. I have had so many people. As a matter of fact, one review I've got on the site, Eables.com, is pretty prominent because it was a good friend of mine. And this conversation or a variation of it is what I've had so many times over the last year. And that's, hey, I have fill in the blank, trouble sleeping, inflammation, whatever it is, chronic pain, migraines. And I tried CBD and didn't really do anything for me. And then I instantly know, obviously I want to sell you my product and make money on it. But then at that point, I'm like, you need to try this to make sure, because some people CBD really doesn't do anything for them, especially people that smoke a high THC. Like there's a bunch of other factors, your diet, like obviously, and I'm not a doctor even. So it's like, there is obviously a huge unknown there, or can be. But what I do is I'm like, okay, let's get you a bottle and take it every single day for a week. And then in 8, 10, 12 days, let's see if whatever symptom it is, chronic migraines, inflammation, trouble sleeping, whatever it is, let's see if it's gone down. And 9 times out of 10, it will be. And that's the one that I posted from a friend of mine, because she was a girl. She's like that. She's like, I'd tried it before, just thought, didn't really, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. And then I forced her to try it. And I was like, please, please, please try this. Because she had insane back pain from a surgery and all this stuff. And I was like, please try it. And she's like, a month in, she's like, holy shit, I can walk again. I mean, literally, like she was laying in bed over pain from a surgery. And she's like, now with the right, a high application of cannabinoid, CBD in particular, nothing psychoactive, I'm able to, my pain is such that I can walk again without that difficulty. And so that's what I see all the time, because we've had for so long. I mean, you can go on Amazon, plug in CBD, and 300 products will come up, and not one of them contains CBD.
Right.
That's what people don't understand. Same thing at the gas station. Depending on your state, your local regulation, you go in, it says hemp oil, it says inflammation, it says pain, and it has nothing to do with CBD. Absolutely nothing to do. And they may, and this is one of the education pieces, those oils or those products are not necessarily bad for you. Hemp extract, hemp oil, hemp seed oil, it does have benefit. You can cook with hemp seed oil. You can do all kinds of things, just like any other plant. But what people don't realize is that CBD, cannabidiol, is a cannabinoid from the plant, and that's what needs to be in the final product. Whether it's a salve, whether it's a cream, whether it's a roll-on, whether it's a tincture, it doesn't matter. That's what we're looking for, and that's what's so hard to find. And then when you do find it, then obviously you need to make sure that it's, good quality.
Well,
Because there's a whole lot of bad
pruning
quality.
my head here. I'm looking for. I must be downstairs.
Looking for more cannabis products?
I got my Eables roll-on that I use. My
the
freeze gel.
Yeah.
And that's been out for the longest time, and I've been conserving the last of my bottle. I was like,
I've had a lot of people doing that since.
I was like, does my back really hurt today? Like, can I go without having to use the last couple of rolls of it? But thank God, because it's a great product. I remember, it's actually funny. I was helping, telling stories. I was helping one of my friends move in Philadelphia, and it ended up he had a bunch of people planned to help move. And long story short, it ended up being myself, my wife, him, his wife, and that was pretty much it. and the guy had like 70 some odd plants, and I was like, oh man, my back is hurting today. And I was like, hey, Caitlin, can you go ahead and put my put some Eables in my back? And I'm not even kidding. It was like in a video game where you take the potion and the character like and like that was me. I was like, all right, here we go. Strap me up with a fridge. Let's go up the stairs. And okay, maybe not a fridge, but that maybe 10 years ago, not now. But no, Addison, I'm seeing the value of it for myself. I know there's millions of other people out there who are experiencing the value for themselves, and yet now we see for all the good that's come out of this, the federal government can't seem to get out of its way. You're seeing a vape ban,
which is
what the heck?
Surprise.
Yeah, so like dig into this, and this was news to me because you're a sponsor of the show, and I candidly I like to go ahead and support everything we can do here in the show, and to hear a vape ban, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a huge aspect of I'm sure your business too. So dig into that a little bit. What's going on with this vape ban?
So the vape ban is actually and this is going to be slightly political, and I do apologize for that, but strangely enough, it did come from Donald Trump, the most libertarian president ever. Just blows my mind. That people
just
say that.
Leave it there. Yep.
I'm just like, are you shitting me? But okay. But anyway, so it came from some legislation with him, and what's funny is I've been following this story for some time, even before I was in the industry, technically, over on the No Agenda show, and I was listening to them, and they're talking about the vape ban, and they kind of cut through it, and they're like, well, what this vape ban is as soon as vape became popular. Right. And then you had the addition of salt nicotine, which was a lot higher concentration nicotine that was a lot easier to sell and worked in all these bunch of different new devices and things like that. That's basically what's in the Juul is the salt nicotine. And then it just exploded. And the tobacco companies were going like, oh shit, like revenues are down. Like we can't do this. And so 100%, and you can obviously make your own judgments about what you think the disease was, or, because I think there was like 6 cases of people that basically coughed up a lung and then wound up dying, tragically. But every one of those was a cartridge bought from China or, some other third world country, super cheap, that they basically just filled with any kind of stepped on cannabis concentrate out of California, out of all these places, because that's what they do. You watch a documentary on Netflix about Humboldt County up in I think it's Washington or whatever, or Northern California.
Give us the spark notes.
Well, basically it's a whole town that's run by an legal cannabis trade. And because there are places still like that, because it's extremely difficult, right? So my dispensary this morning, I talked to the girl, she says, oh, now we finally have edibles. Well, why is that? It's not because we couldn't make edibles. It's not because I couldn't make edibles in my home. It's because every time a state gets licensed like this, because of the federal ban, they have to get licensed in that state. So any cannabis that I have from Missouri has to be grown and processed entirely in Missouri. Same thing for Illinois. Same thing for Washington. Same thing for every legal state. And that is a huge, huge problem to the industry, because when I'll give you an example of this, Washington. Oregon, one of those two, I'm sorry, but one of those 2 states got legal, got a whole bunch of licenses for growers and everything else. Everybody started growing. We're doing recreational cannabis. Bam, we're rolling. And then suddenly the Department of Health and Senior Services was like, oh, guys, on the licenses, we have handed out a ton of these, and now we've done the math. And these were articles from, I think it was about a year ago. And they were like, well, we've done the math. And if we stopped growing right now, just stopped everything, we have enough hemp flower for 6 years based on our market. And so it's like, what happened was we gave all of these licenses to people who genuinely need them and are genuinely looking to turn a profit off of their farm and things like that. And suddenly it's like, oh wait, it can't go anywhere because there's only so many people in this state, and we literally can't export it due to federal law.
It's like almost the federal government, its intentions are wonderful, but the actual outcome of said policy maybe doesn't actually accomplish the goals that it had put forth when it was trying to get the policy in place in the first place. It's funny how that happens some way, huh, Addison?
Isn't that odd? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, how about this? Because we are getting towards the end of the show, and I want to make sure, because folks are obviously going to be wanting to know, well, number one, what can we do to help support, the industry? Because this is not just an industry that gives people economic opportunity, but it's truly, as we were discussing beforehand, a life-saving like a solutions-based alternative to what has been presented as the status quo, this healthcare industrial complex where you're not allowed to question the science because, well, the science has got all these people in fancy lab coats, right? Well, guess what?
The biggest thing, just as a side note, the biggest problem for me about that, in the context of all that stuff and the vaccine and all this other stuff, my biggest problem, and always has been for just medicine in general, is that if you go to the doctor, Brian, and you say, I have a bad back, and they say, here's a pill for your bad back, take one a day, we're sure your pain will be gone. Okay. Right. That's fantastic. Brian has found some relief from his back pain. I couldn't be happier. The problem is when I go to the doctor and say I have a bad back, and they say, Addison, take this same pill that we also gave Brian. No. I'm out. That's not what medicine is.
Right.
And it's very basis, do no harm. Like, everybody is different. And we hear this message everywhere, culturally, society, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. I don't have the health problems that you have. So why should I have the same solutions as you do? Maybe at the end of the day, maybe cannabis works great for me, but you should probably have a vaccine or a surgery or whatever, and vice versa. And so that is the biggest problem with the medical industrial complex of come in, get your prescription for whatever it is, and then leave. It's like, well, there's no one size fits all here. And I don't know how we've gotten away from that. But
no, well, and now we do have the option to not just say, well, this is something that could work. Now we have case studies, and we're talking in sales, right? You always want to have something you can refer back to, saying, well, here's what we've already done. Here's what you've already done, Addison. You've helped change your wife's life. You've helped change my life. You've helped change hundreds, if not thousands of other Eables customers' lives because your product is absolutely fantastic. You were one of the first sponsors here of the show because I saw the value of the product.
I love your show. I don't always listen, but I do love your show. I love what you're doing.
My friend. Thank you. And that means a lot because what we're trying to do here is to raise up not just great libertarian entrepreneurs, but also great libertarian solutions. And this is partly the problem we have in the greater liberty movement is people will say, here's a problem. And the person in the left or the right will say, okay, well, right now the government's taking care of the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we say, well, and then we say, well, yep. And that's where the conversation stops. Now we can say, and here's our solution.
Then the libertarians just argue about the problem until the kingdom comes.
well, hey, but now, Addison, now we have people like you who are offering these solutions that are actually helping solve those problems that we're all identifying. So folks of the show, they've listened to the program. They hear the Eables ad, but now let's hear from you, Addison. So Eables, and also introducing Delta 8 THC. Yes, please introduce that as well to the audience.
On both of those, rather. Delta 8 THC. It is the THC molecule. It bonds on the 8th isomer instead of the 9th. So that's the primary difference in terms of molecular structure. They say it's about, and I think there's been some precise testing done. They say it's about 65 to 70% as psychoactive, they say, as THC. But what I always tell people, and this is to me, this is the key point about Delta 8 that honestly most people are missing, is it's only been studied, to my knowledge at least. I mean, I think there's been some other small stuff, but it's been clinically studied one time, and that was back in 1995, 6. And it's linked on the website, mydelta8.com, if you want to go look it up. But it was a study, and it's the only clinical study about Delta 8, and the participants were children, which as soon as a lot of people hear, because a lot of people today, it's like, okay, what about trust the science?
You're
what
like,
about,
get out. Yeah,
I'm
kids?
like, dude, they've literally tested it on kids. And there's a very specific reason for that, which I'm going to get into, because Delta 8, because it's less psychoactive, you don't, well, you know this, obviously, but you don't get I don't want to say any, but as much, or there's hardly any kind of like psychoactive paranoia. There's none of that, or almost none of that, as opposed to because we all know the old stigma. It's like, oh, I can't smoke because I get paranoid. Like that is a thing. The Delta 9 THC, you can start following your thoughts and you get to a paranoid kind of panicky, weird place. And then, but the Delta 8 doesn't have any of that. So, and the only clinical test has been done literally on kids, and 100% of them showed no negative side effects being dosed Delta 8, and they were cancer patients, because it lowers it's actually a very powerful, I forget the word for it, anti-emetic or something like that, but it suppresses nausea and vomiting beyond belief.
Wow.
So cancer patients honestly are eating up the Delta 8 because they're finding something. And so this is what I tell a lot of people where they ask where my business comes from. I'm like, honestly, medical states or illegal states, because they need the relief that Delta 8 actually provides without the psychoactive high that everybody is just trying to chase. And you're able to get it, all 50 states, and they can actually find something that really helps their symptoms. Because chemo patients, they lose their appetite, they're throwing up and stuff like that. My understanding is, and I don't have any personal experience, but my understanding is that Delta 8 can literally it's like a new lease on life. I mean, It just says, hey, because we all know chemo, that's sort of the radiation and everything. It's a horrible, horrible experience. And Delta 8, again, my understanding is it's one of those things where we can say like, hey, your quality of life during this absolutely horrible but necessary medical process is going to be 100 times better because you'll have an appetite, you get a bit of a mood boost, So yeah, Delta 8 is a Delta 8 THC. It's legal. I think there's 6 states that have said officially, like, we're not down with it, just straight up illegal. Even though most of my vendors ship to all 50 states, they're basically just, and to be honest, that's why it says on the site, it's like, you're responsible for knowing your local laws, because even in terms of responsible use, it's like I was telling my wife, I would never take a Delta 8 cartridge, and go hit it, in the mall or the drive-thru. Like, it's just not, like, come on, be serious.
Right.
And it's not that it's illegal, but it's that, like, well, if somebody were to see or whatever, or not understand, like, why even push those buttons, right?
Yeah.
Especially,
know your battles. This goes to libertarians too. Know what battles to enter into. You don't have to pick every battle you see out there.
Not ones with other libertarians.
That's right. Focus your time, effort. Thank you. See, Addison knows, folks, and he's focusing on making solutions.
That's a big part of where I pulled out of the rat race of social media. Because, I pulled all of my social back because I'm like, even all these libertarians, I'm like, well, you guys are just like, this Peter and Paul back and forth bullshit. And I'm like, we're not solving anything here. So I'm just going to put my head into my cannabis businesses and try and change lives. Like, you guys can have the Trump-Biden argument.
Addison, change lives you have, my friend. Thank you for all you're doing, both at Eables and My Delta 8, both. I am so proud to have as sponsors of the program. And I always include those links to the sponsors in the show notes. So, folks, if you're interested in learning about My Delta 8 THC or Eables, EABLES, that's right, you can go ahead to those show notes. Also, we have our other sponsor today of the show, the Chris Spangle Show. So if you're interested in learning about the new rebranded We Are Libertarians Network show, yes, the Chris Spangle Show, head over there. And also, folks, if you're interested in becoming a member of our Patreon, you get one of these awesome Don't Hurt People, Don't Take People's Stuff bumper sticker, $5 a month. That's right, Addison. We give
it's only $5 a month?
$5 a month. I know. Only $5 a month.
I'm going to sign up just for the bumper sticker because I like the bumper sticker. But also, anybody, to anybody out there, if you have any questions just about cannabis, about CBD, about Delta 8, about any of the legality, absolutely 100% reach out. I love talking about it, and I love finding solutions, and as weird as it sounds, at the end of the day, like I said, I like being able to check my email once in a while, and there's a 3-page email from a 90-year-old in Texas who my freeze gel has changed her life, which I've gotten. And it's kind of weird. I'm kind of like, that's neat. Like, I don't know I've had people write me poems and stuff because they're, like I said, they're 90 years old, and it's like, oh shit, like my life can actually be different now. So.
Making a change, man. Thank you so much, Addison. Thank you for all you're doing with Eables and My Delta 8. Always, folks, if you're interested in learning more, head over to the show notes and check it out. But that being said, Addison Todd from Eables and My Delta 8. Thanks for joining the Brian Nichols Show. All Alrighty, folks, that's going to wrap up my conversation with Addison Todd from Eables and my Delta 8. Thank you, Addison, for joining the program, and thank you for being an amazing sponsor of the show. And folks, if you want to go ahead and not only help support the program in terms of helping supporting Eables and my Delta 8 by using code TBNS at checkout, also please do me a favor and share today's episode, and be sure to go ahead and tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, I'd love to hear about it. Email me, brian@briannicholsshow.com. And folks, if you have not had the chance yet, why have you not headed over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and review? People want to hear what you think of the program, especially yours truly. And if you really like the program, if you give us a 5-star rating and review, well, here's what you can do. $5 a month could what? Get you a cup of coffee? Once a day, well, I guess one cup of coffee for that entire month, or you could just sacrifice 1 cup of coffee, get water, or make it at home that day, and go ahead and join the Brian Nichols Show Patreon, because at the Brian Nichols Show Patreon, we're teaching you one-on-one how to sell liberty. That's right. And of course, to help get things started, we're going to help you by piquing some interest in getting one of these awesome "Don't Hurt People, Don't Take People" stuff bumper sticker. Now, if you're looking at the YouTubes, you can see just how glorious, magnificent this bumper sticker is, and it definitely will pique some interest. I was driving to the office today, and I was at a stoplight, and somebody pulled up next to me, and they gave me a thumbs up. So it definitely means that people are starting to realize what we have out there is not working. And folks, it requires us to get them to maybe ask some more questions, or maybe not feel so alone. So if you want to start piquing some interest while also being included in some awesome group chats with some awesome masterminds here in the Greater Liberty Movement, but also one-on-ones with yours truly, talking about some sales liberty opportunities you have coming down the pipeline, love to hear about it and love to learn how I could bring my different expertise and years of experience in sales to help you close that deal, whether it's trying to get a friend interested in the ideas of liberty, or if you're interested in running for office, well, hey, head over to the Patreon, $5 a month, and one-on-one with yours truly, plus just plethora of awesome resources here in the Greater Liberty Movement that we're going to be bringing to the table to help advance this thing forward. Because what's the goal here? We're trying to change people's lives for the better by meeting people where they're at, solving their problems, and getting liberty in our lifetime. So with that being said, folks, thank you for joining us on the program. Now, coming up here on Friday, we are joined over by the great program Liberty Lockout. Now, if you have not had the chance to check out that program, first and foremost, I'm going to include the link in the YouTube, or for the YouTube in the show notes. But coming up here on Friday, the conversation, it's going to be great because, candidly, it's a conversation I think we need to be having. The lockdowns have been something that is something I think we should be talking more about, but for some reason we don't. And I think it's because a lot of us have been told, well, that's something that you're not supposed to talk about anymore. And I disagree. So again, coming up here on Friday, Liberty Lockdowns. With that being said, though, folks, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Addison Todd from Eables. We'll see you Friday.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.